We're going to start at 9 o'clock, but we have, as you know, Tom Trento here with Jay Mark, our director of all the stuff. Susie Gold, unfortunately, is not here this morning.
I'm not Susie Gold.
You're Susie Gold. Hello. Say hello to Susie Gold. And we have been following the events in Israel because we do that. We did not know that things would escalate as quickly as they did yesterday. And as a result, we quickly regrouped here at the United West and fired up our equipment to bring you every day. We'll be here every single day during the course of, they're using state of emergency, they're using war, they're using a variety of terms right now
I won't be here.
in Israel.
Susie will be here.
Susie will be here starting this afternoon if we go on the air this afternoon.
Great.
But every morning, 9 a.m. East Coast time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Once Susie comes, Mark gets relegated to the oblivion over there. But right now he's operating equipment here.
So if you want to have an email writing campaign, bring Mark back on air. Don't do it, okay? Because I don't want to be here.
Doesn't want to be on air. But he's operating everything. We got a lot of moving parts. We have today special guests. We're going to start off in a little bit with Middle East expert Barry Shaw. He's a friend of our show for a long time. He's a little bit north of Tel Aviv in a city, and he's in touch with what's going on worldwide and obviously in Israel. And then following him, we'll have Mort Klein. Mort is the president of Zionist Organization of America. He'll be on. Then after him, Ronnie Wexler, Dr. Ronnie Wexler, who is in the United States. Mort and Ronnie are in the United States. Barry is in Israel. And then following Ronnie Wexler, Jerusalem Jane, our own Jerusalem Jane.
JJ.
Who is where?
In Jerusalem.
In Jerusalem, because she's Jerusalem Jane. And she's doing phenomenal reporting from the old city, from Jerusalem, and we're gonna bring her perspective as to what's going on. We have, when we get started, let me know, and we have Mary up north in the United States, in the Atlanta area. Could we hear Mary when she talks, or only?
No, she's silent.
No, Mary doesn't want to be on screen.
Mary doesn't want to be on. A little too early for Mary to be on camera.
We do have her voice.
Let me know when we have Barry, and then I'll get the show, the formal show started at 9 o'clock, which is right now, a couple of seconds. Is Barry there yet?
No, he's not on yet.
I told him 5:10 after or so.
Okay.
Is the video ready?
No.
No.
Of course it's not.
Of course. Well, let me lay out a groundwork and tell you what's going on. Right now, for all of you who are viewing on theunitedwest.org, and somebody confirmed that that's actually happening. Mary?
Are we actually on unitedwest.org?
Yes, we're on that. Yes.
Okay.
We are broadcasting. Okay, good.
Fire it on.
Part of the problem is some of these social media platforms don't like our content. So when we bring you the truth seems to be anathema by some social media platforms nowadays, and they try to limit our capability to communicate. But as of right now, we're broadcasting on YouTube. We're putting redundancy together. If YouTube says, you know what? Trento and that gang over there, we don't like what they're saying, so we're going to change things around. But we think everything will be all right. We're going to be here, as I said. Welcome all of you at 9 o'clock to our show, originating in South Florida, live. We are live.
We are live.
Right? Yeah. No green
Live
screen.
TV. We have live TV.
Live TV, everything. We're broadcasting a feed from Israel, I-24 News, and all of you interested in following the events in Israel on a regular basis. I-24 News, you can, some of the television, cable, or satellite providers actually carry the station, and or you go to i24news.com and subscribe. You can subscribe, I think it's $5 a month, something like that. They do the best balanced coverage. They will give you the insight. They have people all over the country. So that's one of our many, many, many sources in Israel for news, I-24 News. So you'll be seeing that feed. We were going to put CNN on, right?
No, we weren't.
Well, we weren't. That's right. We weren't. I'm sorry. No, that's
weren't.
nonsensical. The New York Times led with a story yesterday that militants at Al-Aqsa on the Temple Mount defending themselves against Israeli forces. Militants. These are terrorists attacking Jews at the Western Wall. So you want to get the facts, you want to get the truth on what's going on in Israel, you come right here every day, theunitedwest.org. We know we'll be on the air from 9 o'clock till 10, 11, 12, however long we're on. And then if necessary, we'll pick it up in the afternoon. The reason why, and this show is going to bring you up to the minute, real live information, but we're also going to develop the geopolitical, the cultural, the theological elements that have created the situation in the Middle East.
Tom, we have a flash update here. Over 200 rockets fired into Israel over the past hour.
Okay, it's 4 o'clock, a little after 4 p.m. Yeah, listen to this.
On the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, and that's probably as there is a sense of release that now Hamas is taking over in their struggle against Israel's so-called Israel occupation of Jerusalem. And as a result, the Palestinians here are lowering their guard. One example is that the name of the operation that Israel is carrying on against Hamas on the Gaza Strip is called the Guardians of the Walls. And these are the walls that the Israeli army are protecting, the guardians of the ramparts of the old city. And for Hamas, they've called this latest showdown the sword over Jerusalem, Seif al-Quds, which is also relating to the holy sites of this city. Sarah?
And tell me, Pierre, can we expect it to stay this quiet, given that a lot of the time we do see these escalations following evening prayer or really once it gets dark?
Lower the volume for me. What you're looking at,
right here, Tom.
yeah, what you're looking at is the Damascus Gate at the Old City. And anyone who's been to Israel, you have been to the Damascus Gate. If you go into the Old City, that gate or the Jaffa Gate are the primary entrance areas. This has a recessed area. People sit around there. Thousands of peaceful, loving tourists on a regular basis. Not right now. And this is real time right now.
It's another rocket going on.
That means that from Gaza, the strip to the west of Israel, Gaza, run by Hamas, fired 2 more missiles. These are not fireworks. These are Katyusha rockets and even larger rockets. We've held them in our hands, 6 feet long, full of explosives. We're getting reporting that 2 Israelis have been killed in Ashkelon, which is a bordering city to Gaza. I'm going to shut this off for a minute.
I got to interrupt you here for a second. They're not just filled with explosive people.
Yeah,
I mean, we've actually seen the ordnance inside them. It's not like a grenade. They're actually nuts and bolts about this big. All right, which are totally meant to maim, kill, and injure civilians, not indiscriminately launched at, not at targets, not at civilian targets, just thrown up in the air. It was yesterday, it was 70, Tom. How many is it today?
Yeah, it's over 200 missiles in the past hour. It's 4:15. No, it's 4:06 in Israel right now.
But over 1,000.
Yeah, we're hearing reports of over 1,000. We'll get confirmation because Barry Shaw will be with us shortly. But right now, and here's the seriousness of this for all Americans. Inevitably, when there's destruction
that's a house.
Yeah, that's a house in
Ashkelon.
Ashkelon, which is a bordering city. if you live in New York City, and right over the Hudson River into New Jersey, where I grew up, that's what this is like. They're firing missiles from Manhattan into Newark, New Jersey, just right over the river. And these people have 15 seconds. And we've been in Trento police station doing the drill when they hit the siren. You got 15 seconds to get into a bomb shelter. Well, this unfortunate house got hit. And Mark, your point, indiscriminate firing with ordnance designed to maim and kill everyone. No Geneva Convention for the Hamas. So why this is very, very important for all Americans. Inevitably, if this war, we're at war now, when a foreign entity, the terrorists of Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Iranians, when they are firing missiles into civilian population, what do you call that?
Terrorism.
Yeah, I mean, they're at war. So
you brought up a good point earlier, Tom. You're saying, well, I said, what would happen if Cuba launched 1,000 missiles at Florida? And you said, no. What'd you say?
not Cuba, it's 90 miles away. It would be if Manhattan launched missiles into New Jersey, right over the Hudson River. It's a matter of seconds.
Right.
And the sirens go off. And then, unfortunately, this home got hit and 2 people have been killed.
But you brought the Portland people up.
Well, yeah, we have all this rioting going on in Portland. It would be like the Antifa, Black Lives, Islamic Jihadis, they're all working together now in Portland, start firing missiles at a neighboring city in Portland to Eugene or Salem or one of those cities. That's how insane this is. But here's the ramifications. This is very, very important. The ramifications for everyone in the United States. We have seen, because of our extensive work in Israel and here, fighting Islamic Jihad and the Marxist movement, we have seen that inevitably, if this type of war continues 3, 4, 5 days, 10 days, and Israel starts pounding the enemy, Gaza, and starts destroying their command and control, starts taking out their military factories, building these rockets, and the Israelis know where all this stuff is. The first response by Hamas after their bravado of shooting all these rockets is to mobilize the Arab street in Israel, in the region, and then worldwide. They call upon all good Muslims to protest and riot in every country we're in. I was in Paris in 2009 after Operation Cast Lead, January of 2009, 30,000 Muslims parading, protesting down Rue Rivoli, right in front of the Louvre, and it was amazing. And then we saw the same events occurring here in Florida and elsewhere in the United States. This time around, if the Arab street is mobilized, they're going to be joined by Black Lives Matter and by Antifa, because the jihadis have been supporting all during the riots in America, Antifa and Black Lives. So Nihad Awad from CARE, who said our issue is Black Lives Matter, he's going to say, hey guys, we need your support on the streets of Miami or the streets of New York or whatever streets. So we're sending a warning to the United States. These events 7,000 miles away have reciprocal consequences for every single American.
Well, and also you think about what at the core essence of what this is, okay? This is pure anti-Semitism attacks on Israel. There's nothing else about it. I mean, why are they anti-Semitic? Well, because Muhammad said you should be anti-Semitic. And so that's the reason they hate Jews. They hate Jews so much. Who did they team up with in World War II? Oh no, not the United States. They teamed up with the Nazis. And so if you think that the Nazis are lovey-dovey with Israel, no, right? Why did they team up with them? Because they hate Jews in that fashion, in a genocidal fashion. And if you think that the Arabs today are not siding with the socialists, the National Socialists, who turned into Nazis later, you don't think this genocide is going to come to America's shore and this anti-Semitism is going to come to America's shore with the people who ideologically align with the people who hate Jews in a genocidal fashion. Liberals, wake up, smell the coffee. They're coming
Yeah,
after you.
we need the liberal Jewish community that's typically supporting a lot of these groups to realize that there are very deep theological, cultural elements of Islam that have on their agenda, not just eradicating the Jews from the river, the Mediterranean River, to the Jordan River, to the sea, the Mediterranean.
From the river to the sea.
But even if all the Jews moved to Uruguay, they would say we gotta get them out of Uruguay. They can't stay in
They
Uruguay.
would attack
But
Europe.
we'll lay out all of those geopolitical dynamics as we cover this for as long as this war goes on. Let's see if we have Barry with us. If
We
not,
don't
we have a
have Barry,
video.
but we have Jane.
What?
We have Jane.
You
All
wanna
right,
do
let's
a
go.
little bit with the video.
All right, we'll do this video, and then we're going to go to Jerusalem Jane. This 2 or 3 minute video lays part of the historic condition, the historic framework for the events of today. So listen and watch carefully.
Now, it's by a leftist organization, so it sounds a little leftist, it is, but it's a
Well,
good
it's
video.
actually pretty. It's fair. It's a
Fair.
fair and balanced video.
So let's go back to 1948 when the map looked a lot different. Back then, all this land was controlled by Great Britain. And due to growing tensions between Jews and Arabs, the UN worked with Britain to split the land into 2 states. One for Jews, Israel, and another one for Arabs, Palestine. The Jews in the region accepted this plan and declared independence of the State of Israel. But the Arab states in the region saw this plan as just more European colonialism. They didn't accept the plan and instead declared war on Israel. Israel won the war, pushing well past the borders of the UN plan. During the peace negotiations, a ceasefire line was drawn in green ink. It became known as the Green Line. It wasn't necessarily a border, it was just a ceasefire line, with this being the State of Israel, and this section being controlled by Jordan, who had taken control of it during the war. The Jordanians named this newly seized land the West Bank because it was west of the Jordan River. The fragile ceasefire remained until 1967, when Israel fought another war with its Arab neighbors. Israel wasn't looking to take over land in this war, but in just 6 days of fighting, it blew past the Green Line and seized a whole swath of land, including the entire West Bank. Suddenly, Israel had a decision to make. Do they make the West Bank a part of Israel and give the 1.1 million Arabs living there Israeli citizenship and voting rights? Do they give the land back to their enemy Jordan? Or else do they let the people create their own Palestinian state? This became a major debate in Israeli politics. Many Israelis saw this war they just won as not just a military victory, but a religious sign that the Jews were meant to return to the place where a huge amount of Jewish history happened. The hills of the ancient Judea and Samaria, which is basically the entire West Bank. So while the government was debating what to do, Israeli civilians began moving into the West Bank without any permission from the government. One said that Jewish civilians were moving on to mostly empty plots of land that they had captured in a war, and that had deep historical and spiritual significance to them. The other side, which is the side that most of the world took, said that these settlers were colonizing land to expand their nation. In spite of international condemnation, the number of settlers in the West Bank grew. Over the next few decades, more and more factions of the Israeli government began to support the settler movement, allocating public resources and granting permits for building. The Israeli Housing Ministry and military began developing plans on how to develop the West Bank. They built roads throughout the entire region, allowing easy access between the settlements and mainland Israel. More and more building permits were given out, and planned communities began popping up all over the West Bank. The settlements slowly shifted from a fringe group of motivated civilians to an institutionalized part of Israeli society, totally supported by the state. Here are the Palestinian towns in the West Bank. Watch how the settlements weave throughout these Palestinian towns. Palestinians didn't like this encroachment. They began protesting, often with extreme violence. Between the violence and the condemnations from the international community of the settlements, the situation became unsustainable. So, in the mid-1990s, American President Bill Clinton, Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, and Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat signed the Oslo Accords, agreements that established a Palestinian government and split the West Bank into 3 sections. Area A gave Palestinians total control over security and government. This makes up about 18% of the West Bank, but most of the Palestinian population centers are here. This was a big deal because it gave Palestinians self-rule for the first time. Area B was designated for Palestinian government control while retaining Israeli security control, meaning the Israeli military remains very present there. Area B is about 22% of the West Bank. Area C remained completely under the Israeli military and government control. This is where all the settlements are in Area C, and it's about 60% of the West Bank.
All right, that's a short video. And again, as we continue with our programming for as long as this war goes on, we're going to bring you a lot of material to help educate on the issue. But right now, we want to go to one of the world's top experts on the Middle East.
Brilliant man. Brilliant man.
What?
A brilliant man.
Yeah. Our good friend, he's the head of ZOA, Zionist Organization of America, the president, and Mort Klein. It's very good to see you again, Mort, under these circumstances, which are very sad. But this is reality. What we just have to deal with it. How are you today, Mort?
Well, I'm really frightened for what's going on in America and what's going on in Israel. It's just astonishing that the world is essentially siding with the terrorists of Hamas and the terrorists of the Palestinian Authority. And this violence is based on a lie. The lie is that Israel is throwing out innocent Arabs from their homes for no reason. But in fact, in a nutshell, this was land the Jews bought over 100 years ago. Jordan stole it in the 48 war, threw the Jews out and brought Arabs in, banned Jews from living there. When Israel recaptured it in 67 war, they went to court. It was 50 years of litigation, believe it or not. And the courts repeatedly said, this is Jewish land. These Jews owned this land from before the 48 war. And they said the Arabs can live there, an astonishing concession, as long as they pay rent. And for years, the Arabs have refused to pay rent. And so finally, in the last few weeks, the court said, look, you don't pay rent, you're evicted. And we're talking about 48 people who refused to pay rent to the legal owners that a court ruled legally these Jewish people own. And when the court ruled this, the Arabs used this as a false pretense to start rioting. And ridiculous people started calling this genocide. Ilhan Omar and Tlaib, 2 of the biggest Jew haters we've ever seen in Congress, condemning Israel for throwing out people who won't pay rent. Anywhere in the world, if people refuse to pay rent, the courts will say, evict them. And that's all that's happened here. And so the world's response just shows that the world just has enormous enmity to the Jewish state and to Jewish people. This is pure anti-Semitism because the Arabs are acting horrifically here. And I'm shocked by Senators Warren of Massachusetts, Senator Sanders. Hello?
Yeah, we're here.
You're
I don't
here?
know where that's coming from.
Senator Sanders and Senator Warren have condemned Israel and said, stop the eviction. Warren's a lawyer, professor of law, and says that they shouldn't be evicted even though they're not paying rent. This is really unbelievable. By the way, Senator Murphy and Senator Coons have chimed in saying, don't evict these people. In other words, they're getting involved in a local Israeli matter of a court ruling that's illegal for them to live there if they don't pay rent. And the world is just not making any sense because of their extraordinary hatred toward Jewish people. That's all. That's the way I see it.
All right. Well, you used to. Thank you for the analysis of the problem going on in that Jewish community, the Arab community, right next to Jerusalem. But
It's part of Jerusalem. It's part of Jerusalem.
It's part of Jerusalem. Yeah, of course.
Sheikh Jarrah is part of Jerusalem.
You used 2 words. You said false pretense. we could build a 2-hour show over the false pretenses that have been an opportunity for the Arabs to go after the Israelis, the Jews. Let's just dig down a little bit more. False pretense, then what is their real pretense? If the false one is this housing situation, rental situation, what's the real pretense for a war that has broken out in Israel now?
The real pretense, the real reason, this is a long, mega decade war against the Jewish state. The Arab, most in the Arab world, especially the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, want to destroy the Jewish state of Israel. This is the goal. Abbas, nobody writes about this. Mahmoud Abbas, the dictator of the Palestinian Authority, has been there 16 years, has publicly urged confrontation, increased confrontation, and has said, aim your bullets well, make sure they hit their targets. He said this publicly, and yet nobody condemns him for it. Imagine Netanyahu said something like that against for Israelis to act this way. The world would go crazy. So the goal is to kill Jews and destroy the Jewish state. It's nothing less than that. That's what this is all about.
Mort, we have a real concern here at the United West. We spend a lot of time in Israel. Dr. Ronnie Wexler, in fact, he's going to be on right after you. And I'll bring him on in a minute to say hello to you. Mary, you can cue up Ronnie. But we have real concerns that if this thing continues in Israel, there's going to be a call nationwide, worldwide, and in America for the Arab street to start protesting. And we've seen this past summer that the Black Lives and Antifa street has been joined by Islamic jihadis. What are your concerns about what could happen here in America if this spills over?
Joe Biden has appointed numerous people to high posts that affect the
Mort,
U.S.
excuse me 1 second. Ron, you got to mute yourself.
I got it.
Okay, go ahead, Mort.
Joe Biden and his far left supporters have appointed the strongest anti-Israel people to high posts that we've ever seen. One after the other is hostile to Israel. Never seen anything like this. He has now reinstituted giving taxpayer money to the terrorist dictatorship of the Palestinian Authority. $250 million he's now sending to them, encouraging terrorism. So we've never seen such a decline in support for Israel of the U.S. administration as we have now under, I call this the Barack Biden administration. I believe this is really Obama and the far left controlling Biden. I believe they're telling Biden, if you don't do what we say, we're going to invoke the 25th Amendment and get rid of you. And so Biden is just going along with whatever they want. That is my opinion. So I'm worried that Israel is going to begin to realize they can't depend on America, God forbid, and they're going to have to go their own way and to protect themselves. That's what's happening right now.
All right, here's what we're going to do, Mary. Mary is managing the guests out of Atlanta. Mark has a question for Mort. Then we're going to bring Ronnie on to comment on some of what Mort has said. So first, Mark's question, then we'll bring Ronnie on.
Hi, Mort. How you doing?
Hi.
Thanks for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. I mean, we appreciate your insight.
I love being on with clear thinking patriots.
Amen. Amen.
Well, I just want to explain, make sure absolutely clear what we're talking about, that the reason for the Arabs attack. And what I know as a Christian, all right, not as a Jew, just looking at it from a third party stance, I see it as this is a pathological hatred of Jews. So in the same sense as a genocidal Nazi type of hatred towards Jews, where they want to put them in the gas chambers when they say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free of Jews. There is no, nuclear bomb over top of Israel is quite okay with them. Am I right in thinking that way, or can you help me out?
Mort,
all,
hang on, Mort. Listen to this. Let me put this thing on here. Live as we're speaking, Mort, every time one of these sirens go off, a missile is being fired from Gaza. As we're talking about this, bombs are raining down on southern Israel right now, Mort.
these are missiles and rockets provided for and paid for by Iran. And the reason they have so much funds available for this is because of Barack Obama's disgraceful Iran deal that gave the Iranian terrorist regime $150 billion, which they're using to fund terrorists, including Hamas. This was the most horrific deal anyone's ever made on behalf of the people, this Iran deal. But no,
Actually, to tell me the action, am I more correct to think that they have a genocidal hatred of Jews?
When Hamas and Fatah, the Palestinian Authority, talks about going after Israel, they talk about going after Jews. They don't say Israelis, they say Jews. This is Jew hatred. The Quran preaches hatred of Jews, I'm sorry to say. And their goal is to continue having this war against Israel and to push for a one-state solution where suddenly there'll be another 2 million Arabs as part of Israel, ending it as a Jewish state. This is their goal. And let me tell you something interesting. There's never been a country called Palestine. Never. This was a region. Never been, no Palestinian kings or queens, no Palestinian currency. And let me tell you something else interesting. The word Palestine, it's a Roman name. If this is an Arab land or Arab country, why is it named using a Roman term, Philistinia, Palestine? Because this was never an Arab country. This was Judean Samaria. This was a Jewish country under King David thousands of years ago. So this is one of the great lies that this is Arab land, when in fact, this is called Judean Samaria. We Jews are from Judea. It's not the West Bank, it's Judean Samaria. We are Judeans. Jew is a contraction of the word Judean. That's why we're called Jews, because we're from Judea, which many people know as the West Bank.
All right, Dr. Ronnie Wexler, you're on with your friend Mort Klein. Is he off into space saying that Jews are from Judea? You were born in Israel, Ron. What's going on here?
We don't have him. He's not.
What happened to Ronnie?
He's got to unmute.
You got to unmute, Ron.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There you go. There you
Put your
go.
video
Bring your
on.
camera on as well, Ronnie.
Turn your camera on, Ron.
Am I on?
All right.
Well, Tom, good morning. I have to correct you. I wasn't born in Israel. I was born in Palestine.
Oh, that's right.
I was born in 1947, so it was Palestine, and you saw my father's passport.
That's right.
British passport, Palestina. It says on it. I didn't hear the whole dialogue that you had there with our friend. I think he's from Israel. Is that correct?
No, I'm from Philadelphia.
And you're speaking now from Philadelphia?
I'm speaking from Philadelphia.
Okay, good. Well, for the little that I heard, obviously I have to concur that is absolutely true. The situation in Israel, unfortunately, was kidnapped from real estate issue and civil law that should be very easily resolved into something that Israel never had seen before. And the reason I'm saying that is that for the first time, I think Hamas, and we shouldn't take them lightly, was smart enough to kidnap the Al-Aqsa issue and make it into the big war. So not only that this is a problem now between us and Hamas or the jihad groups in Gaza or the Fatah faction in Judea and Samaria, we have now a war that is going into the heart and soul of every Muslim in the world. And I'm afraid that we are going to hear from countries that we never really heard before in the way of condemnation of Israel. I think that what we always used to say, this is cultural warfare, spiritual warfare. It is truly now a religious warfare. It's almost like the Crusades, like this is our mountain, we have to clear it from Jews, or this is our mountain and we can share it with everybody, which is the Jewish stand. I think that what we see now is not going to be resolved that easily. We are in a situation now that I know, Tom, you said that you, on your cell phone, seeing attacks on Israel, and every time there's a siren, you hear it too, here in Florida. Situation is dire. An entire city in the south of Israel was told, in no other certain terms, to stay home in shelters. That's the city of Ashkelon, of 130,000 people. I looked at some of the media coverage on different stations here, whether it's in America or in Europe. It's slanted so badly. The poor Palestinians are being hurt, and there are so many being killed. And on the other side, it said, and Israel claimed that it had, so many wounded. I mean, this is crazy. It's just insane. The fact is that there's no such thing as surgical warfare. When people are shooting at you from highly dense populated communities, and you have to go after them because they're killing your own families. What do you expect to do? But whatever we explain now just is falling on deaf ears. We never been very good at our public relations worldwide. I mean Israelis, and we are not going to be good at it now either. But
hang on 1 second, Ron. I'm letting this thing play the alerts that we get from Israel. To purposely disrupt us as we're talking.
This is real time.
Yeah, the sirens are disrupting us in the comfort of Philadelphia and Florida and our studio. But every time this thing goes off, it impacts families in the towns that we've been in.
There's another one.
Here goes another one. Many, many times. Let's bring in Barry Shaw, who is in Israel right now. And Barry, you're on with Dr. Ronnie Wexler and Mort Klein, the president of ZOA. Mort, do you know Barry Shaw from Israel?
I know the name. I don't know him personally. Glad to meet him.
And I also want to say to Mort Klein, and we want to thank you for the whole of Israel for the excellent work. I know you're putting yourself out on the line quite often for ZOA on behalf of Israel. I know you get a lot of incoming from it, but I want to tell you your voice is vitally important to everybody here in Israel. And Israel Institute of Strategic Studies certainly salute the work that you're doing, almost single-handedly.
Thank you so much. It means so much to me because I am bitterly attacked, not by Arabs, not by Muslims, by fellow left-wing Jews.
Yes. I want to talk about in more detail, perhaps you and I together on Tom and another program, because this is an issue I've been dealing with, and I'll be dealing with it on an online Zoom event I've got to do in a couple of hours' time, where I'll be pointing to the American Jews of one of the enemies of Israel right now, as strongly as that.
Hi, Barry. Ronnie just laid out that we're looking at a conflagration that has medieval tones to it. Before we get into that, give us a real-time update as to what happened overnight, what's happening.
Right. I'll give you an update. I just want to say very quickly, though, to Ron, that I disagree with one part, because I heard what Ron said about the Arab world picking sides now between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority because Hamas has made Jerusalem a target. I think this is going to backfire on Hamas. You know why? Because I think a lot of the moderate Arab and Muslim world will be very angry at Hamas, who claim they're defending Jerusalem by firing rockets at Jerusalem. I would imagine that most of the moderate Arab world will be very angry to terrorist organization claiming they're defending, as I said, the holy city by firing rockets at it. That's as far as a different aspect of this,
I don't know.
conflict
That's
that's
a good
going on.
discussion point, but give us.
Anyway, let me just let me just go up to date because before joining you, believe this or not, I heard somebody from the Gaza Strip talking on Israeli television, and he was saying that there is a war of attrition going on between Hamas and the Palestinian authorities. And they're carrying out this war of attrition, a political war of attrition for dominance over the Palestinian society. And both sides are targeting Israel instead of each other in this war of attrition. That's a different, interesting axis. Welcome to the wild Middle East, Tom. It makes common sense. It does to the Palestinians and Hamas. But anyway, the update I can give you is almost some sad news because I don't know if you covered it or not, but I can tell you there have been 2 casualties, 2 deaths in Ashkelon from direct Hamas rockets striking buildings. A number of serious people have been seriously injured. And as of 10 minutes ago, Benjamin Netanyahu came out of a security cabinet meeting. By the way, Hamas, when they heard about the deaths, started celebrating victory from Gaza and saying, now it's time to have a ceasefire and stop maybe the firing. Just so happens that Benjamin Netanyahu came out of a security cabinet meeting and he announced that the Israeli cabinet have decided to, in fact, increase the targeting on Hamas. The game isn't over so far as Israel is concerned. There are still very valuable targets for us to hit. And our intention has been to degrade Hamas, and we have another few days. We're going patiently through the bank of targets, and we're knocking them off one after the other. The latest casualty I can tell you is the military commander of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket brigade. He was targeted. There's a video of the targeting of his home on my social media site if you want to see it.
And I want to bring up a quick point about this only occurred, I mean, Trump defunded everybody in the
Palestinian Authority.
Palestinian Authority, and Biden turned around now has given them $300 million, reinstated that, and all of a sudden, oh my God, they're firing rockets again. Is there any correlation there?
You're getting me riled up, aren't you? You're getting me really riled up. Because I mentioned to Tom just the other day, the Biden administration have started refunding the terror-supporting Palestinian authorities who give their money to reward their terrorists in defiance of the Taylor Force Act, which is still in law in America. And yet the Biden administration have flouted American law and giving your money, your taxpayers' money, to the terror-supporting Palestinian Authority.
Well, when you go in, if you look at the whole West Bank area, as they call it, or Judeo-Samaria, as it should be called, and you go back to the 1967 and after, people from Israel started building stuff, started creating roads, houses, buildings, roads, infrastructure. All that infrastructure, road infrastructure, wasn't built by the PA, wasn't built by the Arab nations, it was built by Israel. And all the money that's ever given in that whole area has gone to infrastructure, building, roads, universities. All the money that has gone to the PA has gone into building tunnels to go into Israel to blow it up and make bombs, and 2 different mindsets.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to add, and this applies to you guys in the studio and to Mr. Klein also, that when you hear your people like Anthony Blinken and Jake Sullivan, your representative in the United Nations, talk about a conflict between Israel and the Palestinian occupied territory, it's us and the Palestinian Authority. We better make peace with the Palestinian Authority or there can't be peace without it. You'll notice that what is vacant, what is empty, what is missing from this narrative is the word Hamas. Hamas, the reason that the Palestinian elections were cancelled, because Hamas was on their way of winning the election. No. And next time any of you are speaking to your officials over there and they refuse to talk about Hamas, they've backed it out, you can tell them that Hamas is the one that's controlling the conversation in the Palestinian street. And if they think that making peace with Mahmoud Abbas is peace, Forget about it. It's the same deceptive language. And I want your American official and your American media to start telling the truth, telling the uncensored truth about what's going on over here. Hamas exists. It's the elephant in the room, and you can't make it disappear.
All right. Well, that raises several issues. Mort, first a question to you, then a question for Ronnie. But it is 9:42, 9 o'clock in the morning, 42 minutes after 9, East Coast time, Florida, Philadelphia time, 4:42 in Israel, 7-hour difference. Right now, things are winding down, but as we've seen at nighttime, the missiles keep firing. Ron, the question to you, after I get to Mort first, this is Tom Trento hosting an ongoing broadcast. We will be here every morning at 9 o'clock live. We'll go 1, 2, 3 hours, whatever the facts on the ground dictate. We'll come back in the afternoon if we have to. Nobody in this country is going to cover this critically important development in the Middle East like we will, because they don't want to. They simply don't want to or don't have the capability to. But Ron, after I go to Mort, the question to you, if Barry is correct and the Hamas is running this thing, would it be strategically wise to go after Ismail Haniyeh, the head of Hamas? I know the IDF is going after mid-level commanders. Strategically, would it be wise or not to go after the head of the snake? Hang on to that. More question to you is, you're running a large, significant organization, Zionists Organization of America. What is your message? You're an eloquent individual that writes extensively. And leads a large group. What is your message right now to your folks in America and worldwide?
Basically, people should realize this is an Arab-Muslim war against Israel, the US, and the West. The goal of Iran and other radical Muslim Arab countries is to Islamicize the world. That is their goal. The goal is Israel's destruction and the US destruction. Iran every day has rallies screaming death to America and death to Israel, not just death to Israel. So this is an Arab war against Israel. This is not about a state. Remember, it's not about a Palestinian state. Israel, under Ehud Barak and Ehud Olmert, twice has offered statehood on virtually all of the disputed territories. And not only did they reject it, they went to war and started an intifada, a terror war, starting to murder Jews. They could have had a state many times over. They don't want it, because getting a state, they have to sign a clause saying no further war against Israel, no further conflict, and no Arabs are allowed to move into Israel from the Judea and Samaria. They refuse to sign this, and the world should understand that Mahmoud Abbas and Fatah are as bad as Hamas. They have the same goals. They don't have missiles. If they did, they would use them. Remember, it's Abbas who pays Arabs to murder Jews. And the more Jews and Arab murders, the higher their lifetime pension. And the pension is 5 times the average salary of a Palestinian. It is very lucrative to murder Jews. Imagine if Netanyahu paid Jews to murder Arabs. The world would go ballistic. Yet this is what Abbas is doing, and it's basically ignored. Abbas and Fatah, they name schools and streets and sports teams after Jew killers. They glorify Jew killers in their society whenever they die. So we should understand they are working together. The difference between Hamas and Fatah is that they want the power. It's not that they have a different goal. They have the identical goal. So it's not just Hamas, it's Fatah and much of the Arab Muslim world, I'm afraid. Even now, the countries Israel just made peace deals with, Bahrain and UAE, they've condemned Israel for retaliating. They have condemned Israel for retaliating, as opposed to telling the truth that it is the Arabs that started this. It's the Arabs that are doing this under the false pretense of, for God's sakes, legally evicting people who refuse to pay rent. It's a minor local issue, and they've used this as a pretense to start killing Jews.
All right, crazy situation. Ron, again, Tom Trento with J. Mark Campbell here, hosting a show. You don't look like Susie
Not
Gold.
Susie Gold,
No.
not Susie Gold.
She'll be back tomorrow live. We miss her dearly. But we will have a very lovely woman
Yeah,
on toward the end of the show. We have Jerusalem Jane in Jerusalem has been doing. She's in Jerusalem. She's been doing great reporting from the Damascus Gate, from Jerusalem. Very brave woman there. We'll bring her on in a little while. But Ron, strategically, the question, and Barry, after we speak to Ronnie, I want you to answer Iran's role in all of
Yes,
this.
please do,
So
yeah.
Ron, strategically, did Israel go after the heads of the snakes?
Well, I think I agree with what we just heard. Israel is practically the West last line of defense. There's no question about it. So if we have to go against the enemy that comes to annihilate us or to break that line of defense, I think all rules are open, and if we have to go against the head, we go against the head. If somebody else comes in, we get rid of him too. I firmly believe that yes, we need to go after the heads of the organizations, and they are the ones that usually don't risk themselves at all. They don't even live in the area. But I want to bring another something that maybe.
Wait, hang on 1 second, Ron. Because we have viewers, and then we'll be sending this out who may not know you. Dr. Ronnie Wexler is speaking now. You hear the accent there. It's an Israeli accent. He was born in Palestine, as he said, before 1948, which was still Israel. And he is a scholar with advanced degrees in Jewish and Christian theology. And he spent most of his adult life organizing. He has a very substantial tour company, and we go on our United West tours through heritage study programs, and we're going to be continuing them in the near future. Ronnie has spent most of his life bringing Jews and Christians together. He's taken over 100,000 people, Jewish and Christian leadership, to Israel to understand the Holy Land, what it's all about. So he's a very peaceful guy. So when he's talking,
67.
when he's talking about, if necessary, go after the heads of the snake, this isn't some radical fanatic. He's a very peaceful guy. But when called on in 1967, when called on in 1973 as a young guy to defend his country, he answered the call. He trained, picked up his weapons, and went into combat against the Arab countries in 1967 that invaded Israel, and against the Arab countries in 1973, and has the scars to show that. So you're listening to an individual who understands both sides, war and peace, and who prefers peace over war. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, well, thank you for the introduction. I'm a very peaceful man, and I remember the days that we sat with I used to go shopping in Gaza in the market, and became friendly with some of the shopkeepers there, as the ones I introduced you all in Jerusalem as well. So yeah, peace is possible, but the agenda that Hamas has is not peace. And unfortunately, we also have a Trojan horse in Israel, a fifth column of 20% Arab citizens of Israel. Most of them, I would like to believe, are friendly, but I know quite a few that aren't. And yesterday, and I did see it in any of the local media here in the United States, the city of Ramleh, not Ramallah, but Ramleh, which is a Jewish city in Israel, and Lod, which is the adjacent city to Ben Gurion Airport, were a war zone between Arab communities and Jewish communities. In fact, it ended with one death. And so when push comes to shove, and you create from this, as said before, just a civil incident of people that don't want to pay rent for houses that don't belong to them. Now it's a religious war, and we're taking Al-Aqsa, and you unite all these people against Israel, just like as you said in biblical times. This is a major problem. We need to stop it. And we have a crazy situation in Israel. We don't have a government, and everybody's bickering, and they don't find a place, and they argue about nonsense. But now it's the time to come together and make a stop to that. Over 250,000 people now in Israel are under barrage of rockets. Any moment, something can happen, either in Ashkelon or Sderot or Ashdod. Those are big cities. We need to stop the nonsense, come to the point, and give the right answer. And I believe the right answer today, and as you said, I'm a soldier. Right answer is to go after the head and destroy and slowly make sure that you clean the trenches. That was my understanding of what was my role in the war. Go and clean the trenches. Make sure the enemy is not there to shoot at you. That's all. If it needs to go to the head, you go to the head. And then you go after everybody else. But you can't let it go. There's no way this can continue the way it continues now.
Benny Gantz just approved more airstrikes into Gaza.
Right
That's
now?
huge. That's huge. Because he's not the far right person in the world. Right?
Yeah, Benny Gantz, who we'll get that update from Barry. Thanks, Ron. We're gonna go to Barry. Then I'm gonna ask each of you for 1 or 2 minute closing thought, and then after you guys leave, we're gonna bring Jerusalem Jane on to give the woman's perspective of what's going on out there. But Barry, I think it was 2014 Operation Protective Edge. We had to cancel our normal Ronnie Wexler tour that summer, but I came anyway in August, and I went up to Narim, to the kibbutz right next to Gaza, and it was where the last, after a treaty, a peace deal, a ceasefire was called. Hamas did their typical firing, like the end of the fireworks show, a barrage of rockets, and they hit an electrical tower, put the power out for Narim, and the AC went down, and the kids were getting all hot. So 3 or 4 of the men went out to see if they can repair it, and a missile hit right on the spot where they were working and killed one of them, and I think the 1 or 2 of the others lost their legs. Well, when I was at that spot where the missile hit, my host pointed out to me the wife of the gentleman who was killed, and this was just so earlier. I asked if I could interview her, and I interviewed her with a translator, and I have never aired the footage. I just felt I shouldn't air it. It's in Hebrew, and but I'm looking at the red alert, and Narim is getting hit again as we speak, and I'm very familiar, and obviously Ronnie's familiar, and Barry's familiar, probably Mort, he's been there, and Mark's been there, of what's going on. But Barry, give us the role of Iran in all of this.
Yeah, before I get to that, I want to make a very important point on your program. And I want to ask you at United West and also Mort Klein at ZOA. I'm going to make a very important point over here. Palestinian Hamas, unprovoked, is now firing rockets into Israel's civilian centers, killing people, including an elderly woman, and injuring many, including kids. This is a war crime. Palestine, believe it or not, is a member of the International Criminal Court. The International Criminal Court is about to launch war crimes investigations against Israel for what you said, Operation Protective Edge. I want to appeal to you and your connections and your influences, yours and Mr. Klein as well, to go to international lawyers and jurists and make a case to the International Criminal Court that one of their members, the Palestinians, have been now, as we speak, conducting war crimes. If they intend to hold war crimes against Israel, on past charges put to them by terrorist organizations like the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, it's up to respectable lawyers and respectable organizations to put a petition to the International Criminal Court and demand that they investigate Hamas and the Palestinians for the war crimes they're conducting right now.
Good point.
It's a very good point.
Good point.
What do you think, Mort?
Of course, I agree fully with Barry Shaw. I would urge people to write to their congressmen and senators, tell them, one, stop sending $300 million to the terrorist regime of the Palestinian Authority. This is simply paying money to support terrorism. We have to condemn the false pretense of a local issue of evicting people who don't pay their rent, and we should condemn it. We should be supporting Israel fully. We should urge publicly to stop Abbas from naming schools, streets, sports teams, children's camps after Jew killers. They glorify and honor Jew killers. You know, here we're tearing down statues of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. Well, they're erecting statues to Jew killers, and the world is saying nothing. We have to condemn Mahmoud Abbas by name for this. And we have to understand this is a religious war by Muslim Arabs against the Jewish state of Israel. That's unfortunately what it is. And Iran is one of the leaders behind it because of the money they have and the armamentarium they have that they're giving to Hamas and other terrorist groups around the world. They are the leading funder of Islamic terrorism on earth. And here, Joe Biden wants to reinstate the deal and get rid of all sanctions against Iran. We must fight to stop reinstating the Iran deal, which will only strengthen Iran and that deal will allow Iran to have nuclear weapons in a few years. It's an outrageous mistake. We have to fight against this.
All right, thank you very, very, very much, Mort Klein, president of Zionist Organization of America. Mort, what we're going to do, we're going to be here every single day until this thing is over, and we will stay in touch with you and get you on regularly to help us communicate a very important message to the world, all right?
Thank you. Thank you for your great and important and holy work. Thank you.
All right, you have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. Mort Klein, we're going to say goodbye to him. Barry, we're going to go to you for the role of Iran. Then Ron, we'll go to you for a closing thought. Then we'll go to Jerusalem Jane. Tom Trento here hosting with Susie Gold, right? Oh, no, wait.
No.
J. Mark Campbell right here. We miss Susie. We'll see her tomorrow. So Iran, Barry, sure.
Yes, in this particular outbreak of violence against us in Israel, Iran has certainly in the past up to recently been supporting and morally supporting everything that's going on. But because of the Israeli intelligence, their access or the Hamas access to their rockets and everything has been blunted. Yeah, they're certainly carrying on providing their Hezbollah allies in Lebanon and in Syria with their weapons and funding as well. But we managed to channel off a lot of the Iranian support directly to Hamas. That is not saying they're not involved. That is not to say also that countries like Turkey are not involved, giving them moral support. But I think what we're finding in the Middle East is now a division. It's a division really between the moderate Arab states that look on Iran as their main danger. And quite frankly, to these people that are making peace with Israel, the Palestinians are a nuisance. And I don't think they're fooled by what's going on. I don't think they've been taken in by blaming Israel for doing all sorts of violence on their mosque. Israel is not doing violence on their mosque. Israel is not provoking and inciting the violence. It's coming from the Palestinian side for their own internal benefits. It's a Game of Thrones between Hamas and Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority. The winner takes all.
Barry, I got a quick question for you. And this is what I've noticed over time, forget about the current day situation, but the whole history of the situation. It always seems there's some correlation here where when the United States looks weak, they look impotent, they look, leaderless.
Yeah. The
Arabs attack. The whole Arab world attacks. When we project strength and display armament and we're going to take you guys out, they back off and they settle down. is because the Biden presidency is showing weakness, is that's one of the reasons that the Hamas and Fatah are just like, yeah, hey, let's go after him?
I want to tell you though, if the Biden administration was showing weakness and not getting involved, that would be one thing. But the thing that worries us in Israel and our neighbors over here making peace with us, especially the Saudi Arabia, who've got their own problems with Iranian proxies in Yemen, is that the Biden administration is actually taking sides, is actually starting the meddling and the type of wrong-headed meddling that we saw under the Obama administration. If you look at Anthony Blinken, if you look at Jake Sullivan, if you look at Susan Rice, if you look at all the others who are the people who are framing the policy, even the foreign policy, it's not the empty suit, the old man in the Oval Office. He's just the puppet. It's the people behind him. And dare I say, Obama is there. I don't believe Obama is sitting at home reading books and just playing golf. He's there. He has his people in the Oval Office. And these are the people who are setting the policies.
If Trump was in power, would
this would never happen.
This would never be happening right now?
This would never be happening right now. The Arabs wouldn't dare. And they would be, the Palestinian Authority would be surrounded by Israel, by a Trump administration, by the moderate Arabs who would not tolerate their nonsense, and Hamas would be isolated. Now we have weakness. I mentioned the other day that Jake Sullivan, your national intelligence guy, told our Mayor Ben Shabbat, our national intelligence chief, that criticizing Israel for provoking the violence, it had nothing to do with Israel. Israel provoked nothing. It was a conflict, a civil war by another name carried out by the two sides of the Palestinian divide.
Right, Tom. I don't ever remember it. I don't ever. Was there any of this type of stuff happening under Trump, Tom?
No, not like this. No,
unfortunately, Mort isn't here, but Mort made a very important point, and maybe we discuss it on another program. Some of our devious enemies have been some of the Jewish groups in America, Jewish Voices for Palestine, J Street, and others. And they have the support of a lot of the Democrats. When the Democrats go out electioneering, they don't go for the affirmative Zionists. They usually schmooze up the groups like J Street, the younger generations or whatever. And these people are embedded with some of the strategic makers in the Biden administration right now. That's part of the danger as well.
In our analysis, Tom Trento here, your host with J. Mark. In our analysis, we have been looking at the geopolitics of the Middle East and the Biden administration, and we said this is the worst possible case for pro-Israel constitutional people who believe in Western civilization, the Judeo-Christian worldview. This is the worst case, some of the situations that are occurring in the Middle East with Iran, and then harmonized with the Biden administration and the points you've made many times, Barry, the leadership coming right out of the Muslim Brotherhood. So the worst case for us is the best case for the other side, and they simply have implemented the best case. Well, here's what we're going to do now. Barry, we will be in touch with you on a regular basis. We thank you for your time. We know you're like a one-armed paper hanger out there. Everyone worldwide is calling you because of your expertise and your location. So we thank you for taking the time. I want to go to Ronnie for a closing thought from you, Ron, and then we'll bring in Jerusalem Jane. Ronnie.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I agree with Barry. Of course, I agree with Mort. We all understand what the problem and the situation is. We are looking at a traumatic experience of biblical time. You know, we're fighting religious war here. You know, it was interesting. Just about 2 hours ago, I was listening to a man in Ashkelon who has a factory there that employs a number of Palestinians from the city of Hebron. They travel every day from Hebron to Ashkelon because they have a job in the factory. There are about 400 workers altogether, and 40 of them are Palestinians.
Right.
And he was asked, how do they feel about this? And said they feel very good about that. They don't feel that they are different than Israelis. They're being under attack. So obviously there are Palestinians that see the truth, but there's a small minority that have a grip over the street in the West Bank, in Samaria, and in Judea, and of course in Gaza. I believe that many people.
Ron, Ashkelon, the area you're talking about, is getting hit right now as we speak.
Well, Ashkelon has been told, the population of Ashkelon, a city of 130,000 people, been told to stay in their shelters and not to even leave until further notice. So of course they're getting it, and they've only 30 seconds from the time of alarm to get into shelter. They're very close to Gaza. They're just 10 kilometers from the border. So obviously they are getting it hard, and there are older people that can take care of themselves and they have to be helped. There are many people that are in shock. It's a trauma. It's a trauma.
40
but
rockets
all
were just
people
shot
in
off in
Gaza
the
are
last
in
minute.
trauma. But they have to stop it. They instigate it, and they want to see dead people in Gaza. The Hamas people and the jihad, they are not afraid of death. They worship death. So they want to see people die in Gaza because that's the weapon. Show the world. Children, that's the most beautiful sight. Children dead in Gaza. Israeli destroy a portion of Gaza and here. Those are the casualties, the kids. They instigated. They want to see it happen. And we don't have any other choice. We have to go after the people that kill us.
Gantz just called up said to approve 5,000 more reserve troops up for this. So this is going to escalate.
It's escalating. Yeah, it's escalating. All right, Ron, look, you got us in this mess, Ron. You bringing us over to Israel. You got us in this mess.
1967 war.
Yeah, so we're going to be with it. And through your contacts and our contacts, we have people all over the world that can weigh in intelligently and dispassionately lay out the facts. So, hey, thanks again for coming with us, Ron. We're going to let you go now. We're going to bring in our lovely Jerusalem Jane. Mayor, if you can bring Jerusalem Jane in.
Yeah.
Jane Kyle is a woman from Denmark. And some years ago, I guess it's about 8 years now, God told her, she's a Christian. God told her, he actually came down and knocked on the door and went in her house, and she had
Jane.
coffee with him. And
Jane, come here.
yeah, you're going to Israel, Jane. And she said, oh, my heart already is in Israel. And she went all by herself. And all she did was to go and stand with the Jewish people. She wasn't what is known as a missionary trying to convert Jews to Christianity or anything like that. She had a loving heart for Israelis, wanted to stand with them.
She's got a great singing voice.
And then we got her in a little bunch of trouble singing on the Temple Mount and a few other things. And she has come under death threats by Arabs worldwide. And if anyone out there wants to donate to a worthy cause, donating to Jane's continued work
Us
in
first, though.
Israel.
Us first.
Yeah, we'll go with her first. She's on the front lines. Both, they write 2 checks. The first one to Jane, and then the second one to us.
I like the other way.
Donate, please. You can go, she'll give you her websites and all of that. But she's been out there on the front lines. Jane, welcome to our continuing coverage of the war. And I'm hearing Michelle Terrace, who's one of our producers. I just promoted Michelle to a producer. One of our producers.
When did that happen?
Producers, Special Projects Israel. She sent me, I haven't checked it out, but Michelle usually sends pretty good stuff. 2021 Operation Guardian of the Walls.
Send it to me. I'll put it up.
Yeah, Guardian of the Walls.
Text it to me. I'll put it up.
And and it's a pretty cool picture. So we're going to put that up. This looks like every time there's a war, the Israelis name it, obviously, and this is Guardian of the Walls, the Western Wall. So Jane, are you there? And tell us what's going on, please.
Shalom, my friend. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we
Good.
do.
Hi, guys. Thank you for letting a girls join the boys club. Well, it is definitely hectic here in Israel. I mean, I have been here now, for 7-8 years, and I have lived through terror attacks, rocket attacks. For people who don't know, Israel is literally attacked by rockets many times during the year. This is not new, but the amounts, we just had 137 rockets in 5 minutes. Now imagine that happened to America or Denmark, where I'm from. No country would put up with this at all. So it is very, very hectic. And for the first time in the 7 years that I have been here, 8, we had the siren, the rocket attack here in Jerusalem yesterday. I had been down by Damascus Gate and recorded live on my Facebook page, making videos, walking around mainstream media and everybody. And I just came home and took a shower. And of course, Hamas had said that if the Israeli police didn't go off the Temple Mount at 6 o'clock, like a terrorist organization can give an ultimatum to a sovereign state, well, they would start firing rockets. They did. And for the first time in 7 years, they fired at Jerusalem. So I ran to my balcony and I started live streaming on my Facebook, and I was really shocked. I was like, am I even hearing right? Am I really hearing right? And then you had boom, boom. And that was rocket coming to Jerusalem that the Iron Dome took down. And a rocket hit a house out in Mevaseret Zion, which is the city you drive by before you reach Jerusalem coming from Tel Aviv.
Hang on, Jane, hang on 1 second. Mark just put up the photograph that Michelle Terrace sent us. And if Mary can put the photograph back up,
I'll put it up.
Jane or Mark can put it back up. Jerusalem Jane was talking about the boom, boom. Now, we've been to Jerusalem Jane's apartment right where she is right now. It's not far from the Knesset, and it's right close to the downtown area, Ben Yehuda of Jerusalem. Everybody needs to go there. Fabulous place. But the Iron Dome is a defensive system. And if you're looking at the screen right now, it should pop up. The Iron Dome is mobile. It's moved around the country, located where it's needed when missiles are coming in. And the picture that is the overview for the name of this campaign, Guardian of the Walls, that's the Iron Dome firing one of its $100,000 bullets. It fires a $100,000 bullet at an incoming rocket that the telemetry says is going to hit in a sensitive area. And the boom that Jane was referring to was that Iron Dome firing one of its bullets that are 12 feet long, going after literally a marble in the sky to hit it. But that's how precise these are. But from a cost benefit perspective, the Iranians funding Hamas,
What we're looking at is basically one of the 5 Iron Dome.
their cost is hundreds of dollars to make one of these. So every time an Israeli fires a defensive missile, and they usually have to fire 1 or 2 or 3, depending on the trajectory to hit it, $200,000 or $300,000 expense to knock down a $200 missile. This is why Israel has to move quickly to knock out command and control. All right, that's a little insight. Go ahead, Jane, continue on.
They just, yesterday, they put up an Iron Dome around Ben Gurion Airport, and plane coming into Israel is now landing on the different side in order for rockets not to fire at them. I just saw now that the IDF is moving tanks towards the Gaza border. So this is definitely escalating. The chief of staff has said that all terrorists in Gaza are now legal targets. Benjamin Netanyahu just came out from a security assessment, and he was speaking to the Israeli people, and he says, hang in there, there is still a way to go. So this is probably not something that's going to end tonight. This is, there's a lot of people who are saying, Israel, you need to do what you need to do, because the people living in that area around the Gaza border, they are completely traumatized. Like I said, it almost happened every month that rockets are fired into Israel, which is it's a sovereign state, and these people are deeply traumatized and trying to have a normal life, but it's not possible. But what I also really want to tell your viewers, and I really want you to understand, is it's not just the rockets. It has been heinous since the Ramadan started here in Israel. We have had the most outrageous lynching attempt of Jewish people. And I share about this. If you follow me on my social media, I share about it, I speak about it. A young man who was out walking with his dog, and the minute they found out he was a Jew, he's a Jew, and they attacked him and they lynched him. It's a miracle he wasn't killed. Yesterday, when I was out, just before I was down by Damascus Gate, a young Jewish man was driving in his car. The minute they found out he was a Jew, they started peddling his car with rocks. So he crashed and was in the car with a friend, and they ran up and they tried to pull him out of the car. They were beating him viciously. They were throwing rocks at him. And only because a police officer, one, was nearby and started firing in the air did they not manage to kill him. I could tell you, I just wrote a blog, incident upon incident upon incident of Jewish people have been attacked on the street, walking to synagogue. We had a terror attack where 3 young Jewish boys were waiting for the bus, and this terrorist come by in his car, and he shoots them down. And one of them died, literally executed on the street just for being Jewish. 3 terrorists was arrested.
Yeah, this goes back to what we were talking about with Mort Klein earlier. I mean, everybody says, well, this is about land, it's about land. No. This is about pure hatred of Jewish people. Genocidal, when I say hatred, I'm talking genocidal, in the gas chambers, Hitler type of hatred. That's what we mean by hatred, genocidal hatred. This is what's driving this whole thing. And what you're saying just proves the point. This is not the governments that are upset. These are people in the streets. They just want to go out and riot and kill Jews. That's all they care about. Am I correct, Jane?
Can you see me? Can you viewers see me?
Yeah, yes.
Because look what was sent to me today. First, there was a picture of Hitler, and then they are saying, another Jewish Holocaust is coming, you bloody terrorist Zionists. Remember, we will take revenge of our innocent Palestinian. We're going to crush you like a bog. Just wait. Another Hitler is on his way to you. Time to start jihad in Israel. And the last message I received, Inshallah, very soon we will destroy dirty Israel. I receive this every day personally for standing up for Israel and for when I post something. So this is what this guy said. It's not from my mouth. This is a jihadi war with cold-blooded terrorists who is murdering Jews and have been doing that down through history for no other reason than being Jewish. So when mainstream media are saying, oh, but Israel was throwing out some Palestinian in East Jerusalem, that is just ludicrous. This was settled in court. There were documents that proved the Jewish people owned this house. This is an excuse to attack the Jewish people. And I heard your previous guest, if I can just keep going. This is about Abu Mazen, a terrorist in a suit, who canceled the Palestinian election. He was elected for 4 years. He has been in office now for 15, 16. He is so corrupt. He pays $450 every year to terrorists who is murdering Jews. He knows that if there is an election now, I'm going to lose. Either to someone in his Fatah party, because they have split into 3 because they don't support him, or Hamas is gaining momentum tremendously in Judea and Samaria, but especially here in Jerusalem. Every night when they are on the Temple Mount, they have green Hamas flag, waving green Hamas flag, screaming Shabbat to Hamas, sending rocket into Tel Aviv. Then they come off the Temple Mount after they have attacked the police. They go up through the Damascus Gate, and then again they are clashing with the police, screaming support to Hamas. And so there's all of these frictions between the Palestinians. But what do? There's one thing they hate more than each other, and that is Israel. And that's why we have all of these attacks, because, you know, it's not about a two-state solution. It never was. From the river to the sea, Palestine would be free. That's their goal. That's what they're aiming for. That's why we have all of these heinous attacks. But your mainstream media has not spoken about all of these heinous attacks and all of the attacks there has been before. No, they are coming into Israel now saying, oh, but the Jewish settler, right-wing extremists are trying to force out Palestinians. And, oh, but Israel is bombing in Gaza. Poor victims, poor innocent Palestinians. Where were you? Shame on you. Where were you when all of that took place?
Yep.
When the Jewish people are being murdered over and over again for no other reason than just being Jewish.
Right. And your point being well made. She was. But
No,
I was
go
just
ahead.
trying to amplify your point. Was what is the #1 best-selling book over in Hamas? They worship Hitler. They don't think he's a bad guy. The best-selling book is what, Jane? Mein Kampf.
Mein Kampf, Ken, yes. Yeah.
All right,
So
Janie, look, Jane, you're doing amazing work. Couple of questions. And Mary, if you have a question for Janie, let me know. We're gonna wind this down in the next few minutes. How can people get in touch with you? First of all, where's your social media? How can they get in touch with you? How can they donate to you? You're essentially, but you got a lot of friends, but you're working by yourself. We want to keep you going. How do they do
Yeah.
that, and where do they find you?
So someone met me and said, you live in Jerusalem, your name is Jane, la la la, Jerusalem Jane. I think that was you guys and Damon.
Yeah.
I think
So
it was
this-
David. David says it was him.
I say it was.
I
me.
think it was me.
I think it was me.
Okay,
It was between the one
So-
and three of us.
one of
Yeah.
us, yeah.
So Jerusalem Jane is not a name that I chose. It was, but it came to me and it picked on. It just picked on, especially after we guys went to the Temple Mount and we made the video of me singing
Alan,
Shema Israel and all the death threats I have received.
Hold on, I made the video.
But Alan was up there too.
Yeah.
He didn't make the video. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So I want to say to everybody who doesn't know me, if you just go on Instagram, YouTube, all of the social media, Jerusalem Jane, that's me. It's very simple. Only one thing is different, Facebook. And that's because I started that before I even became Jerusalem Jane. So I started this page because I saw how mainstream media was so anti-Israel and not sharing the truth. And, you know, it's not a two-state solution. It is Israel, one nation. Israel, one nation. And there's about 180,000 followers around the world now who follows me. So Facebook, Israel, one nation, all other media platforms, Jerusalem Jane. I also have a webpage, jerusalemjane.com. So follow me. I'm making live videos. Like I said, I was down by Damascus Gate yesterday. And all the work tools that I have is a small phone, and I'm sitting here with a computer, 7 years old. But you know, I left my family and friends, and I came here through ups and downs, in and out, hard times, good times. My best friend was murdered in a terror attack. We used to do videos together. I was the Christian, he was the Jew, murdered out in a supermarket, just shopping for his family. Because like this text was saying, jihad towards Israel. So yeah, I'm just here being girly boots on the ground, doing my own little thing, because listen, mainstream media is just not doing their job.
All right, I have one last question for you, then we have to close. This is coming from Susie Gold. She's not here with us, but she's in a position to watch the show. Susie Gold wants to know, you knowing the history in Israel, living there, what do you feel the Israeli military response will be this time in light of the kind of confused, broken government? What do you think the military response is going to be?
Well, I just told you that they are moving tanks and they have moved artilleries. So Israel always as the very last resort, is going to send in ground troops because it's messy and it's bloody and there's going to be Israeli soldiers killed, and they don't want to do that. So right now they are pounding down with everything they have from the Air Force, and also they are shooting in with tanks. But the fact that, and you have to remember, it's a new chief of staff. This is his first major escalation, but he's out and he's very strict. And like I said, all terrorists inside the Gaza Strip are legal target right now. They will,
All right,
they will avoid ground forces as long as they can. But the question is, what are they going to do from Gaza?
And as you're speaking, I just got another red alert. The kibbutz that I was referring to earlier, Nahrim, they just got hit again. I'm getting goosebumps. It's a tiny little village with kids playing out on swings and unbelievable.
But they're all tiny little villages
yeah.
with kids in a swing, you know,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. These
So-
are not like metro, you know.
Can I tell you that one of the rockets today direct hit down in a school? And the only reason that school was empty was because they were following IDF orders. Leave, leave, leave. Could you
Yeah.
imagine if we didn't have the Iron Dome? It would have been a massacre the last 48 hours. But now 600-700 rockets. Imagine if they hadn't shut them down.
All right, well, look, we got a lot to do. Janie, Jerusalem, Jane, thank you so very, very much for joining with Jay, Mark, and me, and the rest of our team here. Some downstairs resting, some working. We look forward to, you did a great job, but we look forward to Susie Gold tomorrow.
Just because
And
she's prettier than me.
yeah,
that's all.
yeah.
That's the only reason. You like pretty girls better than me.
Smells a little better too. Smells a little better. So we'll have Susie Gold here tomorrow. If things get crazy during the night, it'll be our afternoon, 7-hour differential. We'll be back later on this afternoon. We'll send out emails to let people know, but we want everybody watching. I mean, I'm amazed at the past hour and a half of the experts we had on. That's a tip of the iceberg of the people we can bring to bring clarity and truthfulness to this. Tell your friends, 9 o'clock every morning, the United West. And we're gonna carry on and
Hey, Jay,
support Israel.
give us a call. And we'll share the link automatically to your page.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that. Plus, you're gonna be out shooting videos, so we'll gather some of those and bring you on and play some of them on the
Yep.
air.
Exactly.
Okay.
So be careful out there. It's real tricky.
Yeah. I am
Yeah,
quite.
yeah.
No. I actually know quite some things, so I have to be very careful. And you will not see me out and about at Damascus Gate at night because they definitely know who I am.
Yeah, that's not good. And be careful when you're walking back to your apartment to make sure nobody's following you. In any event, Mark, say goodbye.
Bye, Mark.
Goodbye, Mark. And Tom Trento signing off. Bye, Janie. Thank
Bye.
you, Mary. And we'll see Susie Gold, Tom Trento tomorrow. Take it easy. We're signing off. Goodbye, everybody. That's it.